This is a special presentation of Farm Journal Television.
Today on Corn College TV, field agronomist Ken Ferry breaks down the connection between crop residue, fertility, and pH. We dig deep into different types of tillage. Missy Bauer takes us below ground for an in-depth look at working with the soil. And farming by the foot, dividing each field into multiple management zones.
Welcome to Corn College TV with field agronomist Ken Ferry, associate field agronomist Missy Bauer, Farm Journal's Margie Fisher, and host Clinton Griffiths.
Hello and welcome to Corn College TV. I'm Clinton Griffiths, your host for this weekly class in everything corn. Our goal today, like every day, is to make sure you're maximizing yields, minimizing inputs, and reaping the financial rewards out of every field. To do that takes getting the right systems in place. So in today's systems approach, we're talking about one of the most important aspects of growing corn, fertility. Well, for today's systems approach, it's pretty appropriate that it's raining, I guess, because we want to talk about fertility and pH in our soils and nitrogen deficiency, which is pretty evident right here.
Right. Nitrogen's a tough one to manage because we got to account for what the soil is going to give us, and we have to make up some of those differences, and we got to account for the losses, and that's tough to do because Mother Nature plays a big part in that as well as the soil itself. And rain like this can be nitrogen's enemy, and it can be its helper. If it keeps the soil moist and keeps the microbes working, we can produce a lot more nitrogen in the soil for the plant to use. A year like this year, where we've got excessive amounts of rain, we have a tendency to be flushing nitrogen out of the soil. And the key for our nitrogen plan is to keep this corn green from start to finish and try not to let it go yellow or show nitrogen deficiency. It's hard to do in the spring, especially in corn on corn, to keep corn yellow if we're paying a pretty severe carbon penalty. But we can do that by applying higher amounts and managing it. When we get to this time of the year, though, we need to keep the plant as efficient as we can on nitrogen. And when plants start to run out in the reproductive stages, such as these are here, right, it's going to be a disaster. There's going to be a severe loss, and we can try to rescue something like this with some high clearance applications or aerial applications, but we're behind the eight ball already. And in this case, if we found this within a client's field, and if it happened very often, we'd have to totally remake his nitrogen management system, because obviously he's not hanging on to a nitrogen long enough to get this job done. If a farmer's going to have trouble with nitrogen, and you never like to have yellow corn, but it's always better to have a little yellow corn in the beginning than to have corn go yellow as we're moving into the tasseling.
Yeah. If we're talking about putting down and building a nitrogen plan, what do you say goes into building that system and building that plan?
Well, there's a lot of components, but one, of course, is the soil types that we're working with. What is their nitrogen holding capacity? Or better yet, what's their water holding capacity? So if we're into sandier soils or silt loam soils that don't have the water holding capacity, it means they don't have the nitrate holding capacity. Wherever water goes, nitrogen goes. So those are soils we have to stay away from fall applications. And if we do, we need to protect that nitrogen with inhibitors to make sure that it doesn't get into the nitrate form. Right. We're going to be better off to split that application up between our dry fertilizer, our spring weed and feed, starter fertilizer, and then come back and side dress. And some soils may be multiple side dressing, especially if we're in a center pivot type situation. Right. So how much nitrogen or water will the soil hold? And then we can also look at how much do we think the soil's going to give us. And that's going to be a number of things, but typically higher the organic matter, the more nitrogen the soil is going to give us themselves.
So leftover corn stalks and trash that we have out in the fields and on the ground, then that's going to help replenish nitrogen as the year goes on.
As the corn stalks, bean stubble, wheat stubble, as the microbes in the soil process those and compost them down, they're going to release the nitrogen that's held within it, correct? And nitrogen is stored in the soil. A typical soil here in Illinois could hold somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 pounds of nitrogen. Wow. But it's held in an organic form, and we're trying to mineralize maybe 3 or 4% of that out of there. So the only way that's going to happen is if we keep the microbes happy.
Yeah, and they're the farmer's best friend because that's free nitrogen, right? I mean, that helps grow your crops.
Situation where, depending on where you are and what farm you're in, anywhere from as little as 30 to as much as 70% of the nitrogen we need to raise this crop could come from the soil itself.
Yeah. Another way to help ensure you're getting that nitrogen from those microbes is with pH. Let's talk about that.
You know, we say we want to keep the microbes happy. Well, pH is one of those things. When we talk about the microbes in the soil, we're of course talking about the bacteria and the fungi and the actinomyces in the soil. When we talk about bacteria and actinomyces as the part of the microbial system, they're very sensitive to pH. So if we get the pH too high, but most likely in cases too low, we really slow down their activity. So situation acid soils tend to have poor nitrogen availability and a poor ability to break things down. If I visit a client's field and there's a lot of residue left from last year or the year before even there, and it's just not breaking down, and he no longer calls it residue, he calls it trash because it's plugging up everything.
Right.
Microbially, his soil's got some problems. Usually it's pH. Can be a lot of other things too, but typically that's the first place you would look. If we fix the pH, we'll get the microbes back running again.
Next on Corn College TV, digging deep into tillage, finding the right system for healthy roots and higher yields.
Corn College TV is brought to you by DeKalb. For all-season strong performance and results you can take to the bin. Go with DeKalb.
Go with the brand that gets results with strong roots and strong stalks for performance you can take to the bin. Go with industry-leading DeKalb genetics and proven Genuity trait technology, letting you get more from every acre. Go all season strong. Go with DeKalb.
Mark your calendar. Ag Connect Expo 2011 is coming to Atlanta, Georgia on January 7th through the 10th. Connect with experts.
Learn new ideas, new technology.
Connect to the future of agriculture, the newest innovations. Connect globally with producers from around the world.
This show sets itself apart from the regional shows.
Ag Connect Expo 2011, where the world of agriculture comes together.
Hello folks, this is Mark Gold with Top Third Ag Marketing. If you need help marketing your grains or livestock, give us a call. We offer one-on-one relationships that can protect you without the threat of margin calls. We don't speculate, we manage risk. If you're tired of paying acreage and management fees for marketing advice that hasn't actually helped your bottom line, then give us a call.
Call today to get 2 weeks of Mark's private grain marketing email. Top Third Ag Marketing, earning the trust of American farmers every day.
Growing up in agriculture, I know how important information is to America's farmers and ranchers. They have the tremendous responsibility of feeding this great nation. Here at Ag Day, we're here to help with the latest in agriculture news, agribusiness with Al Pell, the big picture on weather with Mike Hoffman, and stories about the country way of life. Join me each morning for Ag Day, the country experience. As groundwork starts in the fall, tillage plays an important role in prepping the seed bed for next year's crop. But how deep is deep? Should you run a ripper, a harrow, a plow? As Missy Bauer tells us in today's Agronomics of Equipment, research shows these decisions shouldn't be buried and forgotten. The type of tillage you do can make all the difference.
We have to keep in mind that no matter what, the ear count still has to be the main priority. We've got two different tillage systems down here. One of the tillage systems is a real heavy disc, done about 7 or 8 inches deep, followed by 2 passes of a field cultivator. The disc was in the fall, the field cultivator in the spring. The other system was a chisel plow, deep in the fall, around that 7 to 8 inches again, and 1 pass of a field cultivator in the spring. So when we get in here and start to look at these roots, we can see that we've got a lot of roots that are down here in this lower zone in comparison to the other side. Okay? As these roots come and grow down, we are seeing that some of them are hitting that field cultivator layer. You can see here some roots have turned, here some roots have turned. We still have a layer here, but what's helped this layer out is we've done good vertical tillage underneath it. Now remember, this had 2 passes of the field cultivator, so we've kind of gave it the double whammy as far as having a layer there. Plus, this disc was ran fairly deep. It's a big, aggressive, heavy disc, and this is the 2nd year in a row it's had these treatments. So when they dug out this pit this was the chunk that come out. When chunks break off like this, they'll break at those natural density layers. Actually, the top 4 inches here are very loose and friable, but soon as we get into that field cultivator layer, it gets dense on us, and then as we get down in here, it really gets very firm. And once we get past that disc layer, it's hard to really bring a lot of water up. And when we do these chisel plows, we want them to have good cross shatter from shank to shank, okay? If we run a chisel plow too shallow, we're going to see where we've got big columns and then blown out where the shank is, and then another big column and then a blowout. And what we get is we call that a W bottom in there. And when we have a W bottom like that, it starts to give us havoc in trying to have good plantability, or to be able to get our plants out of the gate at the beginning and get a uniform ear count. So what do we have here is a column where it did not. You can see it's very hard soil, very, very dense soil in here. This was never broke up. Here we can actually see we got some great root growth because it actually hit right where one of the shanks was in between here, and then we hit our another column. So we're loose soil in between here, can pick it away without too much of a problem. We get into these and it's very, very dense, hard soils. The worst thing that could happen is you guys go home, you say, yep, I'm gonna do vertical tillage and I'm getting my chisel out and I'm gonna go chisel in the next spring, I'm gonna run that harrow through there, and I get to there in the fall with the combine and I'm not very happy, okay? If we don't do this primary tillage properly, we're gonna go backwards. What the depth is gonna depend on your chisel, and it's going to depend on your soil. And you need to do some digging behind your chisel to see if you've got these big columns. On top of the ground or looking out the back of the cab, this is going to look great. It's going to look rougher. The deeper you go, the smoother it should look on top. The shallower we go, the more blowouts it has and the rougher it'll look. So what we're looking at here, or trying to evaluate when we look at these, is I'm looking for 3 different things. One is roots. How well are my roots going down and what kind of rooting depth do I have, okay? The second thing that we're after is that water movement, moving the water up and down the soil profile. So what we have here, or I noticed here digging this earlier, and this is starting to get a little dried out on me here, is when I'm digging in here, I find that I got pretty good soil moisture up here in this upper surface part, you know, fractures right up and nice and crumbles. I get down in here, I still find the same thing. Nice soil moisture, I'm not finding where I can make a mud ball. I get down here even a little bit further. Break some of that out of there, still very nice soil moisture. I'm not making a mud ball with it, okay? When I dig at the top, or I dig down here deep, I actually have a very nice uniform soil moisture profile. I'm not real wet here or real dry up here, or vice versa. It's quite uniform up and down. And part of the reason for that is I don't have those density layers blocking water uptake. At this point, we're trying to move water from the subsoil up. The second thing is I got some great capillary action going on with these roots pulling this stuff up. Okay. The third thing we want to look at when we're looking at these pits is going to be what was the plantability. How good of a seed bed did I have? Because we can do all this stuff underground, but if we screw up the seed bed, we're still going to be in trouble. So our plow come through here, rolled over, put a bunch of this trash on the bottom. We can see in here, actually, if we start digging from the top, this is very loose soil, crumbles very easily, but we can see that it's quite a bit drier in here. We move into this plow zone. We can see that it seems like it's a little bit drier and harder down in here. And we really get to the point where we're not moving moisture up and down very good. We can see we've got a lot more of this harder, blockier stuff in there. Then I actually get down a little bit deeper into the profile here. And I actually got a lot of moisture here. I can actually make a ball. So I've got lots of moisture down here, but I can't get it up through the zones because we got a layer in here of a plow sole, which is going to be about the worst layer we can have as far as trying to move water up. And then we also have another one up here with the field cultivator. We're definitely catching some roots as well. You can see here some roots getting caught on the plow sole and some down here as well that turned. Here's a guy that got through. Okay, so he got through and he's getting down to some moisture. We look over here, we can see quite a few roots. Here's a pretty good sized root. This is probably our third set on a crown root that got turned, and then he found a crack and was able to start going down. And we see some other roots here that got turned. So from a rooting perspective, how are we doing here? Not as good, are we? Okay. And from a moisture, uniform moisture, how are we doing? Not as good. How are we doing from a plantability perspective? Looks good. We're not going to have an ear count problem here, are we? The ear count looks good. Okay. So when you think about your tillage system, we want to think about these things. What am I doing to roots? What am I doing to water movement? And what am I doing to my ear count? And take all that into consideration.
Later, your farm may include hundreds or thousands of acres, but Ken Ferry tells us why producers should be thinking in feet, not whole fields. Plus, we answer your questions in today's Ask an Agronomist.
Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer is designed to increase your fertilizer efficiency and can boost your yield potential by 10 to 15%. How do we know? Well, first we tested Avail in a series of university trials, then across different states, different counties, different fields and farms just like yours to prove that Avail will keep phosphorus available for the entire growing season. Avail has been proven around the world, and that's good news for your crop as well as your wallet. So visit chooseavail.com and see where Avail takes you.
Hi, Carrie Gottschall here with the perfect solution to your storage problem. A stylish garage or shop right in your own backyard. US Buildings offers you revolutionary designs that are strong, durable, easy to set up, attractive, and affordable. Why have a cluttered garage when you can have plenty of neatly organized workspace?
US Buildings put me in my new shop in no time. Their high-quality steel structure is American-made. It's even hurricane-rated. Now, I can work on my antique cars right in my own backyard.
Their innovative designs require no internal support, which means you get 100% usable space.
I feel like my home is twice as large because I finally have all the storage space I need. Now all my keepsakes are here at home and not stored in a rental unit across town.
No wonder thousands of Americans are using US Buildings. You should too. Call US Buildings right now. Our service representatives are waiting to answer your questions. Build it yourself and save.
America needs to know that something still works in this country. One of those things that is working well is agriculture. And at U.S. Farm Report, what's crucial to me is to make sure we convey the confident, competent voice that I hear from America's farmers and rural residents, that they can count on us. Rural America works. Agriculture works.
Watch U.S. Farm Report Saturday morning and Sunday afternoons on RFD TV. U.S. Farm Report, the spirit of the countryside.
In farming, there's some things you can't do. One of those is make a blanket statement assuming everyone has the same size operation. In today's Farmer's Toolbox, Ken Ferry has a thought that fits for everyone. Dial things down, focus in, and think small. The returns just might be big. In today's Farmer's Toolbox, Ken, we want to talk about management zones and how to find those in your field and what do they mean for the grower. First, how are you defining a management zone?
We work with trying to identify the management zone. It's kind of like starting with a wide focus on the camera and coming in. And one of the fundamental things that we would first look at always when we go into a grower's field is soil type. We want to separate out the silt loams from the silty clay loams from the sand knobs, that type of thing. So a good place to start there is going to be with the regular soil survey that they have and using GPS and going out and identifying is that soil survey map accurate enough for them. But we definitely want to start to separate out the soil type so we aren't trying to manage a silt loam like we are a heavy clay loam.
Because they're different. They don't manage the same way. Plants don't grow the same there.
Correct. They don't grow the same. A lot of times fertility has to be managed differently from a sand to a silt, that type of thing. And they have totally different water holding capacities and risk of nitrogen loss and that type of thing.
Right.
Once we've identified the soil types, and it's rare in some places though, you could have not only whole fields of one soil type, you could have townships of one soil type. Here in Illinois, we get the opportunity to farm lots of different soils in the field. So it's a situation where Once we have identified the soil types, then we fine-tune it a little bit, and then we use other things like soil conductivity readings, definitely the yield map. This is where the yield map really shines, is we're going to use the repeatability of a good calibrated yield map. So we're going to go in there, and if we have a yield zone that shows up either good or bad consistently, it needs to be a management zone. Here where farmers get in a little trouble is they get a wet year or a real dry year, and the yields get knocked back to where they just aren't what they want to be, and the farmer's frustrated and he doesn't want to calibrate his yield monitor. But they're the most valuable years.
Those are the good years because they're kind of the outliers.
That's right. So in a wet year, your light ground's going to produce a lot of corn, but your heavy ground may have too much water. In a dry year, your light ground's going to show how light it is. So that lets you identify those zones. The other thing that we've used here now in the last 5 or 6 years that I think is really neat is using NDVI photos or vegetative index photos from satellites or airplanes.
And how do those work, Ken?
They're going to be very detailed, and they do take out one factor. They take out the factor of trying to calibrate a combine.
Right.
And this works better for some of our large operations. For instance, have multiple combines in the same field, and you're trying to seam a map together that makes sense. An aerial image of the whole field will tell you where the best corn is and where the worst corn is. You're going to have to go out and ground truth that to find out just how bad or how good it is. But it's a situation where then from there we finally have zones that we can start to manage whatever the problem is within that zone. So now we're really farming by the foot.
All right, farming by the foot. Another important part of the farmer's toolbox.
The brand that gets results with strong roots and strong stocks for performance you can take to the bin. Go with industry-leading DeKalb genetics and proven Genuity trait technology, letting you get more from every acre. Go all season strong. Go with DeKalb.
Rust is destroying your valuable equipment and property. Rust Guy permanently stops rust the easy way. No scraping, grinding, or sandblasting. Brush, spray, or roll Rust Guy onto any rusted metal and it will not rust again. Rust Guy is not a paint, but an industrial strength formula that kills rust on contact. It leaves a smooth finish that can be left as is or painted. Rust Guy protects from salt, manure, fertilizer, urine, and rain. Call 888-RUST-GUY to talk to a rust expert. That's 888-RUST-GUY or go to rustguy.com.
I'm Greg Vincent, the editor of AgWeb, and welcome to our new site. This marks the end of many long months by a lot of us here at Farm Journal Media, and also even some of our loyal readers who were dedicated to helping us remain the homepage of agriculture. This new site is designed to have more vibrant content, easier navigation, and faster load times while still delivering the same quality information that you've come to expect from AgWeb over the past 10 years. So go ahead and take a look around the site and let us know what you think.
AgWeb, the homepage of agriculture.
Confusion, doubt, fear. Forces that drive the markets in unpredictable ways. It would be nice to find a voice you trust, a broker with an impeccable compliance record, someone with global contacts and expertise, a sought-after speaker who simply tells it like it is. All that with 30 years of experience navigating these markets. Someone like that would be quite a find. Bauer Trading. Experience at work for you.
Here's today's Ask an Agronomist question. How do I know the difference between a misplaced seed and a double when looking at emergence in my field?
What we're looking for to identify the difference between a double and a misplaced seed, first we'll start off with a double. What a double is a true doubling from the actual meter. So the seed meter itself picked up 2 seeds. When it came around to the seed tube to drop them in, we dropped in 2 seeds at the same time, and it came down the seed tube together. In the field, what it looks like is where we have good uniform spacing on both sides of where this double drop is. So we do have 2 plants right close together here, but we got good spacing on either side of it. That tells me that this was a double from the meter itself when it came down the seed tube. So this is a true double from a meter. An actual misplaced seed is going to look a little bit different in the field. Although the spacing is still real close together, what we see with a misplaced seed is that we have a skip next to it. So in this case, what it happens is it's actually metered properly, so the meter drops it down as a single kernel, but then we have seed tube bounce or ricochet within that seed tube that ends up causing the timing to be off from this. So this is supposed to fall and drop right here, and because we have seed tube bounce or ricochet in the seed tube, it slows up the timing, and we end up with two that are spaced close together to one another, but have this gap or skip next to it. So a misplaced seed, we're going to have two close together next to a skip. In a true double, we'll just have two when we've got good uniform spacing around it.
Thanks, Missy, and thank you for watching Corn College TV. Remember, if you missed anything on the show, you can see it again on our website. Until next time, we hope you enjoyed the education. Class dismissed. Next time on Corn College TV, utilizing soil samples as a management tool, plus the importance of running a level planter, and evaluating your stand. Learn how to see what the plants are telling you. Next time on Corn College TV.
Corn College TV is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.